The crying started just after midnight, Sergeant David Thompson heard it during his rounds through the east wing of Buckingham Palace. A sound so faint he almost missed it. High-pitched, desperate, coming from somewhere. In the walls. He stopped walking. Listened. There it was again. A thin, pitiful wail that made his chest tighten. David had been a member of the King's Guard for 12 years. He'd stood watch in rain and snow. He'd faced down protesters and handled security threats. He'd maintained perfect composure through state, dinners and royal weddings. But this sound, this helpless crying in the middle of the night cut through his training like nothing else. He pressed his ear. Against the ornate wallpaper, the crying was definitely coming from inside. Behind the plaster and wood, somewhere in the palace's ancient infrastructure, an animal. A cat, maybe. Trapped, David pulled out his radio. "Control, this is Thompson. I have a situation in the East Wing, 3rd floor. Requesting permission to investigate possible animal in distress." Static crackled back. "Thompson, can you clarify?" "Animal in distress?" "Something's trapped in the walls," David said. "I can hear it crying." Pause. "Then stand by." David didn't stand by. The crying was getting weaker, more desperate. Whatever was in there was running out of time. He moved along the corridor, pressing his ear to different sections of wall, trying to pinpoint the exact location. The sound was loudest near a decorative panel beside one of the guest bedrooms that had been recently renovated. New paint, new fixtures, new walls sealed over old ones. David's stomach dropped. If something had gotten into the walls during the renovation, could have been trapped when the workers sealed everything up days ago. Maybe longer. If you're drawn into this story already, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. His radio crackled. "Thompson Maintenance says there's nothing scheduled in that area." "Are you certain about the animal?" "I'm certain," David said firmly. "And I'm opening this wall. Now." "Thompson, you can't just..." David switched off his radio. He'd deal with the consequences later. Right now, something was dying in that wall, and he was the only one who could help. He examined the decorative panel. It was held in place by small screws hidden behind carved molding. He pulled out his pocket multi-tool, technically not regulation for guards to carry. But David had learned that being prepared mattered more than following every rule. The first screw came loose. Then the second. The crying intensified, as if the animal sensed rescue was close. "Hang on," David whispered. "I'm coming." The 4th screw stuck. David worked it carefully, conscious of the noise he was making. The palace never truly slept. Staff moved through corridors. Security cameras recorded everything. Someone would notice what he was doing. But the crying was so weak now. So desperate, the screw finally turned. The panel came loose in David's hands. He set it aside carefully and pulled out his phone, turning on the flashlight. The space behind the panel was narrow. Maybe 6 inches of gap between the new wall and the old structure. Insulation, wiring, dust. And there, wedged in a corner about 4 feet down, was a small ginger cat. The animal was barely moving. Its eyes were dull, its fur matted with dust and cobwebs. It looked up at David with an expression that broke his heart. "Hey there," David said softly. "Let's get you out." But the gap was too narrow for his arm, too narrow to reach down that far. He needed something else, something to extend his reach. He looked around the corridor. Nothing useful. Just paintings and furniture that probably cost more than his annual salary. Then he heard footsteps. Heavy boots on marble? Coming fast, 2 more guards rounded the corner. Jenkins and Martinez. Both looked concerned. "Thompson, what the hell are you doing?" Jenkins asked. "You can't just tear apart the palace walls." "There's a cat trapped," David said. "It's been in there for days. It's dying." Martinez peered into the opening. His expression softened. "Jesus, how did it get in there?" "Renovation work, probably," David said. "Got curious, crawled into the old wall system, and got sealed in when they closed everything up." Jenkins was already on his radio. This is Jenkins. We need maintenance and animal control to the East Wing, 3rd floor, immediately. We don't have time for that, David said. The cat's eyes were closing. Its breathing was rapid and shallow. I need something long and narrow. Something I can use to reach down there. Martinez disappeared. Came back 30 seconds later with a broom from a nearby utility closet. Will this work? David snapped off the brush end, leaving just the handle. He angled it down into the gap, trying to slide it under the cat. The animal was too weak to resist. Too weak to even cry anymore. Come on, David murmured. Work with me here. The handle slid beneath the cat. David lifted carefully, supporting the animal's weight, bringing it up inch by inch. The cat's claws scraped weakly against the wood. Its head lolled to one side. Almost there, Jenkins said, watching tensely. David's shoulders ached from the awkward angle. Sweat dripped down his back despite the cool air. But slowly, carefully, he raised the cat toward the opening. Martinez reached in and gently took the animal, lifted it free, held it against his chest. The cat was limp. Its breathing barely visible, its eyes closed. Is it alive? David asked. Martinez felt for a heartbeat. Barely. We need a vet. Now. More footsteps echoed through the corridor. But these were different. Lighter, accompanied by the rustle of expensive fabric. David turned to see Queen Camilla approaching, her face a mask of concern. Behind her was a young man David didn't recognize. Late 20s, well-dressed, watching the scene with careful attention. What's happening here? Camilla asked. Her voice was gentle, but David heard the authority underneath. The cat was trapped in the walls, Your Majesty, Jenkins explained. Sergeant Thompson heard it and performed a rescue. Camilla looked at the limp animal in Martinez's arms, then at the opened wall panel, then at David. How long was it trapped? She asked. Days, I think, David said. Maybe since the renovation work was completed. Something flickered across Camilla's face. Surprise? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to identify. The young man beside her stepped forward. I'll take it, he said, reaching for the cat. Martinez hesitated. Sir, this animal needs immediate veterinary care. We've already called, I said. I'll take it, the man repeated, his voice harder now. I'm Tom Parker Bowles. This is my mother's residence. The cat is our responsibility. David's instinct screamed wrong. Something about this man's eagerness. About the way Camilla wouldn't meet his eyes. But before David could say anything, Tom had taken the cat from Martinez's arms and was walking away. Quickly, too quickly, Camilla followed. Speaking in low tones David couldn't hear, and David was left standing in the corridor staring at an open wall. With the terrible feeling that he'd just rescued an animal from one danger, only to hand it over to something worse, Thompson Jenkins said quietly. What just happened? David didn't answer. Because he didn't know, but he was going to find out. Asterisk. David couldn't sleep. He lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in his head. The desperate crying. The rescue. Tom Parker Bowles' too quick offer to take the cat. Camilla's expression, was it guilt? Something was wrong. David felt it in his bones. At 0600 hours, he was back on duty. Regular rounds. Everything normal on the surface. But David made a point of walking past the East Wing, past the corridor where he'd found the cat. The wall panel had been replaced, perfectly, like nothing had ever happened. Too perfect. Too fast. During his break, David did something he rarely did. He went to the palace administrative offices. Found Sarah Chen, one of the coordinators who managed renovation schedules. Morning, Sarah, he said casually. Quick question. The East Wing renovation that just finished, when exactly was that completed? Sarah pulled up her computer files. Let's see. East Wing, 3rd floor. Completed 6 days ago. Final inspection was Tuesday. Why? 6 days. The cat had been trapped for 6 days. Without food, without water. In a narrow gap between walls. Who was the contractor? David asked. Morrison and Sons, Sarah said. They've done work for the palace before. Very reputable. And the final inspection, did it include checking for any animals that might have gotten into the work areas? Sarah frowned. It should have. That's standard protocol. Animals getting into walls during renovations is actually pretty common. You'd be surprised how many times we've had to halt work to rescue birds or mice, or she stopped. Did something happen? Just curious, David said. Thanks, Sarah. But as he walked away, his mind was racing. Standard protocol. The contractors should have checked. Should have made sure no animals were trapped when they sealed up the walls. Unless they didn't care. Or unless someone told them not to bother. David's shift ended at 1400 hours. He changed into civilian clothes, jeans, and a jackatan left the palace grounds. He needed information. And he needed it from someone outside the official channels. He took the tube to Camden. Found the veterinary clinic listed in the palace's emergency contacts. A small practice wedged between a coffee shop and a bookstore. The receptionist looked up as he entered. Can I help you? I'm looking for information about a cat that was brought in last night, David said. From Buckingham Palace? Ginger? Severely dehydrated. Possible starvation. The receptionist's expression shifted to sympathy. Oh yes. Poor thing. Are you family? I'm the one who found her, David said. I just want to make sure she's okay. Let me get Dr. Morrison. A few minutes later, a tired-looking woman in scrubs appeared. You're the guard who found the cat? David nodded. How is she? Dr. Morrison gestured to a small consultation room. Once inside, she closed the door. She's alive, barely. We've got her on 4 fluids. She's severely malnourished, dehydrated to a critical degree. Another 12 hours and she wouldn't have made it. Relief flooded through David. Can I see her? That's the thing, Dr. Morrison said slowly. The cat was never brought here. We got the call from the palace. Set up for emergency intake. And then we got a second call 20 minutes later, canceling it. David's blood ran cold. Canceling it? A man called said he was Tom Parker Bowles. Said he was taking the cat to his private veterinarian instead. Said we shouldn't worry about it. She just said she's here. On 4 fluids. Dr. Morrison's expression turned grim. Because I got suspicious. I called the palace back through official channels. Spoke to the head of household. They confirmed there had been a rescue. Confirmed the cat was in distress. So I drove to the palace myself. Found the cat in a storage room, alone, no food, no water, no medical attention. David felt rage building in his chest. Tom Parker Bowles just left her there? Apparently, Dr. Morrison said. When I confronted staff about it, they claimed they didn't know. Said Mr. Parker Bowles took the cat to his car, and they assumed he'd left. But his car was still in the lot? He was still in the building? And the cat was in a storage room that's rarely used. He was going to let her die, David said slowly. Again? That's what it looks like, Dr. Morrison confirmed. Look, I don't get involved in palace politics. I just treat animals. But something about this whole situation feels deliberate. Like someone wanted that cat trapped. Wanted it to die. David's mind raced. 6 days trapped. Standard protocol ignored. Tom Parker Bowles, intercepting the rescue. Leaving the cat to die in a storage room. Why? David asked. Why would anyone want to kill a cat? I can't answer that, Dr. Morrison said. But I can tell you this. When I brought her in, she had a collar. Expensive, custom-made, with a name tag. She pulled out her phone and showed David a photo. The collar was indeed expensive. Leather, with a small silver tag that read, Duchess, property of Princess Charlotte. David stared at the photo. Princess Charlotte's cat. The youngest of William and Catherine's children. The 9-year-old girl who was constantly in the papers for her charity, work, and her love of animals. Someone had trapped her cat, left it to die in the walls. And when that failed, tried to finish the job. Does the palace know? David asked. Does the family know? I reported it to the head of household this morning, Dr. Morrison said. They said they'd handle it internally. Asked me to keep it quiet. Said they didn't want to upset the princess unnecessarily. That's not protection, David said. That's a cover-up. Dr. Morrison met his eyes. That's what I thought too. That's why I'm telling you. You cared enough to tear apart a wall to save her. Maybe you care enough to figure out what's really going on. David left the clinic with his head spinning. He needed to think. Needed to understand what he was dealing with. He found a bench in a nearby park. Sat down, pulled out his phone. Tom Parker Bowles. Camilla's son from her first marriage. He'd been in the news recently. Financial troubles. A business deal that had gone bad. Rumors of gambling debts. David searched deeper. Found an article from 3 weeks ago. Palace tensions rise as King Charles considers changes to family allowances. The article speculated that Charles was planning to reduce financial support for extended family members. Streamline the expenses. Focus resources on working royals only. Tom Parker Bowles stood to lose a significant income. But what did that have to do with a cat? David's phone rang. Jenkins, Thompson, where are you? Day off, David said. Why? Because there's hell breaking loose here. Princess Charlotte came back from school. Asked about her cat. No one could find it. And now, there's a full palace search happening. The Princess of Wales is furious. Prince William is demanding answers. And guess who's saying the cat must have run away? Tom Parker Bowles, David said. How did you... Jenkins stopped. You know something. I know the cat is at a veterinary clinic in Camden, David said. I know Tom Parker Bowles tried to let it die, and I know we need to get Princess Charlotte to that clinic before someone makes the cat disappear for real. Jenkins was quiet for a long moment. Thompson, if you're wrong about this, I'm not wrong, David said. The question is whether anyone's going to listen to a guard over the Queen's son. Then we make them listen, Jenkins said. Get back here and bring evidence. David stood up, started walking. He needed to get back to the palace. Needed to protect that cat. Needed to protect a little girl who loved her pet and deserved to know the truth. But first, he needed to understand why anyone would want to hurt a child by killing her cat. And he had a terrible feeling the answer was going to be worse than he imagined. David made it back to the palace in 40 minutes. He went straight to Jenkins, who was standing outside the family wing looking stressed. They're with the king now, Jenkins said quietly. Princess Charlotte, her parents, and Camilla. The girl's been crying for an hour. She thinks Duchess ran away because she did something wrong. David's jaw clenched. A 9-year-old blaming herself while the person responsible walked free. Where's Tom Parker Bowles? Left an hour ago, Jenkins said. Said he had business in town. Camilla vouched for him. Said he was very concerned about the cat and had spent all morning looking. He's lying, David said flatly. And I can prove it. He pulled out his phone. Showed Jenkins the photos from Dr. Morrison, the cat on 4 fluids. The expensive collar? The timeline that didn't match Tom's story? Jenkins stared at the screen. This is bad, Thompson. Really bad. If you're accusing the Queen's son, I'm not accusing, David interrupted. I'm stating facts. That cat was deliberately trapped. Tom intercepted the rescue. Left the animal to die in a storage room, and now he's playing concerned while a little girl cries. But why? Jenkins asked. What's the motive? It's just a cat. It's not about the cat, David said. It's about Princess Charlotte. About her family. About he stopped. A thought crystallizing. What if this isn't the first incident? Jenkins frowned. What do you mean? Think about it. The renovation in the East Wing Watt area exactly was being worked on. The guest suites near the family wing, Jenkins said. Why and who suggested those renovations? Who pushed for them to be done quickly? Jenkins pulled out his tablet. Pulled up maintenance records. His face went pale. Camilla. She submitted the request 3 months ago. Said the area needed updating before the summer events. David felt pieces clicking into place. Pull up any other incidents in the family wing. Anything unusual in the last 6 months? Anything that affected William's family specifically?
Howdy.
Jenkins typed rapidly. The list that appeared made David's stomach turn. A mysterious leak in Princess Charlotte's bedroom. Fixed quickly. No source ever found. A carbon monoxide detector going off in the family's private kitchen? False alarm, they said. Faulty equipment. Princess Charlotte's previous cata, different one dying suddenly of natural causes 3 months ago? Duchess had been the replacement. Jesus, Jenkins breathed. You think someone's targeting the princess? I think someone's targeting her family, David said. Small things. Things that cause stress, fear, things that make William and Catherine look like they can't protect their own children. Again, why? Because if William looks unstable, unreliable, unfit, who benefits? They both knew the answer. Camilla's position was secure only as long as Charles trusted her, but Charles was getting older. Eventually, William would be king. And William had never fully accepted Camilla. Neither had Catherine. If William could be discredited somehow, if doubts could be planted about his capability to lead, if the public narrative could be shifted, she's trying to protect her position, David said. Her son's position? Their financial security? And she's willing to hurt a child to do it. We need to tell someone, Jenkins said. Right now? Who? David asked. The king? He's married to her. He won't want to believe it. Security command? They'll say we're overstepping. We need ironclad proof. We have the cat, Jenkins pointed out. We have a cat that was rescued. We have suspicious circumstances. We don't have proof that Tom deliberately trapped it. We don't have proof, Camilla knew. All we have is me. They both turned. A small figure stood in the hallway. Princess Charlotte. Her face was tear-streaked. Her hands were clenched at her sides, but her eyes were sharp, determined. Princess Jenkins said, You shouldn't be here. Duchess is alive, Charlotte said. It wasn't a question. I heard you talking. She's at a veterinary clinic. Someone trapped her on purpose. David knelt down to her level. Your Highness, this is a very complicated situation. Tom did it, Charlotte interrupted. I know he did. I've seen him. He's always watching us. Always hanging around when Papa's not there. And Camilla, she stopped, biting her lip. What about Queen Camilla? David asked gently. She's nice to my face, Charlotte said. But I heard her once. Talking to Tom, she said my Papa is weak. Said he doesn't understand what it takes to be king. Said everything would be different if grandfather would just see sense. David and Jenkins exchanged glances. Out of the mouths of children. Charlotte, we need to be very careful here, David said. These are serious accusations. Do you understand what you're saying? I understand that someone trapped my cat and left her to die, Charlotte said. Her voice was steady despite the tears. I understand that Tom lied about looking for her. And I understand that you're the only ones who seem to care about finding out the truth. David made a decision. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Jenkins, you're going to keep the king and queen talking. Stall them. I'm taking Princess Charlotte to the clinic to get her cat. And we're going to document everything. Thompson, you can't just take a royal princess out of the palace. I'm not taking her, David said. I'm escorting her to retrieve her property, which was stolen, which is technically theft. I'm within my duties as a security officer. It was a stretch. They all knew it. But Jenkins nodded slowly. You have 1 hour. After that, I can't cover for you. Charlotte was already heading for the exit. David caught up with her. Your Highness, we need to be smart about this. If we leave, people will notice. I know, Charlotte said. She pulled out her phone, the secure one her parents had given her. Mummy's with grandfather. Papa's on a call. My protection officer is James. He'll listen. She was right. 5 minutes later, they were in an unmarked car with James driving and David in the back seat with Charlotte. The princess stared out the window, her jaw set. I'm not stupid, she said quietly. I know people think I'm just a kid, that I don't understand things. But I see, I hear. I know Tom is always asking Camilla for money. I know she's worried about what happens when Papa becomes king. I know they don't like my mummy, Princess David started. Charlotte, she corrected. If we're doing this, if we're really going to stop them, you can call me Charlotte. David nodded. Charlotte. What we find at this clinic might be hard to see. Duchess has been through a lot. I know, Charlotte said. But she's alive because of you. Because you didn't give up on her. So I'm not giving up either. The clinic appeared ahead. Dr. Morrison was waiting. She'd been alerted by David's text. Her expression was carefully neutral when she saw who got out of the car. Princess Charlotte, she said. I'm Dr. Morrison. Your cat is in recovery. She's weak but stable. Can I see her? Charlotte asked. Of course. They followed her inside. Past the waiting room, past the examination rooms, to a quiet recovery area in the back. And there, in a small crate with soft blankets and medical equipment monitoring her, was Duchess. The ginger cat's eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow but steady. An IV line ran into her leg. Charlotte made a small sound. Part sob, part relief. She knelt by the crate, placed her hand against the wire. Hey, Duchess, she whispered. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The cat's eyes fluttered open, focused on Charlotte. And despite everything, despite the trauma and pain, Duchess made a small sound, a weak purr recognition. Charlotte's tears fell freely now. But she was smiling. She knows me. She's going to be okay. Dr. Morrison's expression softened. She's a fighter. Just needs time to heal. Dr. Morrison, David said quietly, we need everything documented. Every injury. Every detail about her condition. And we need your professional opinion about how long she was trapped. Already done, Dr. Morrison said. She handed him a thick folder. Full medical report. Timeline analysis. Photos. Everything you need for whatever comes next. David took the folder. Inside was damning evidence. Proof that this cat had been deliberately trapped. Proof that the rescue had been intercepted. Proof that someone had tried to let a child's pet die. What now? James asked. He'd been silent until now, but his face was grim. We take this to Prince William. No, Charlotte said. She stood up, wiping her face. We take it to grandfather. Right now? While Tom thinks he's safe? While Camilla thinks no one knows, Charlotte, David said carefully. The king might not want to believe this. He loves Queen Camilla. He loves me too, Charlotte said simply. And he'll believe the truth. We just have to show it to him. David looked at James. The protection officer nodded slowly. The princess is right. This needs to go to the top. Now, before anyone can destroy evidence or create an alternative narrative, then let's go, David said. But we do this right. We document everything. We stay calm. And we let the truth speak for itself. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Morrison called out, Princess Charlotte, your catchie's going to need care. Probably a few more days here than careful monitoring at home. Charlotte turned back. Can you keep her safe? Until this is over? I can, Dr. Morrison promised. No one will touch her. You have my word. Charlotte nodded. Then she squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked out of the clinic, like the royal she was born to be. David followed, carrying a folder that could change everything. They were going to war. Against the Queen's son? Possibly against the Queen herself. And their only weapons were truth, a rescued cat, and the courage of a 9-year-old girl. It would have to be enough. The drive back to the palace was silent. Charlotte sat with the medical folder in her lap, reading through it carefully. David watched her face change as she absorbed the details. The dehydration levels, the starvation timeline, the professional assessment that the cat had been trapped for nearly a week. When they arrived at the palace gates, James showed his credentials. The guards waved them through without question. They had maybe 20 minutes before someone reported Charlotte's unauthorized departure. Straight to the king's private office, Charlotte said. No stops. They moved through the corridors quickly. Staff members looked surprised to see the princess, but no one questioned her. She walked with purpose, head high, the folder clutched in her hands. They reached the king's office. His assistant looked up, startled. Princess Charlotte. His Majesty is in a meeting with— I need to see my grandfather, Charlotte said. Right now. It's urgent. I'm sorry, Your Highness, but he specifically asked not to be disturbed. Charlotte walked past the desk, put her hand on the door. I'm sorry, but this can't wait. David moved to back her up. The assistant stood uncertain, but before anyone could stop her, Charlotte opened the door and walked in. King Charles sat at his desk. Camilla was in a chair across from him. They both looked up, surprised. Charlotte, Charles said. Darling, what's wrong? We've been looking for you. Your mother is worried sick. I found Duchess, Charlotte said. Her voice was steady but tight with emotion. I know what happened to her, and I know who did it. Camilla's expression didn't change, but David saw her hands tighten on the arms of her chair. Charlotte, sweetheart, this isn't the time for dramatic accusations. It's not dramatic, Charlotte interrupted. It's true, and I have proof. She placed the folder on Charles's desk. Duchess was trapped in the walls during the renovation. She was there for 6 days. No food, no water. Sergeant Thompson found her last night and rescued her. But Tom took her and left her in a storage room to die. When that didn't work, he claimed she ran away. Charles opened the folder. His face paled as he read. Camilla stood up. This is ridiculous. My son would never. Your son is in financial trouble, David said quietly. He'd stepped into the room now, standing beside Charlotte. He stands to lose his allowance if the king reduces funding to non-working royals, and he's been seen multiple times near the family wing at unusual hours. How dare you, Camilla said, her voice sharp. You're a guard. You have no right to make accusations about my family. I have every right to report a crime, David replied. And this is a crime. Deliberate animal cruelty. Possibly attempted destruction of royal property. And definitely an attack on a member of the royal family through her pet. Charles held up a hand. Everyone, please, let me think. He continued reading the medical report. The timeline. Dr. Morrison's professional assessment. When he finished, he looked at Charlotte. You went to the clinic yourself? Yes, grandfather, Charlotte said, because no one else was looking for the truth. Everyone was just accepting Tom's story. But I knew something was wrong. And you, Charles turned to David. You rescued the cat. Then investigated further when something didn't feel right. Yes, Your Majesty, David said. I'm trained to recognize threats. This situation had all the markers of deliberate action, not accident. Camilla moved toward the desk. Charles, you can't possibly believe this conspiracy theory. Tom loves animals. He would never. Where is he now? Charles asked quietly. Camilla stopped. What? Tom? Where is he right now? I don't know. He said he had business. Call him, Charles said. Tell him to come to the palace immediately. Tell him we found the cat and need to discuss what happened. Charles, this is absurd. Call him, Charles repeated. His voice was soft but carried absolute authority. Now, Camilla pulled out her phone. Her hands shook slightly as she dialed. The call went to voicemail. She tried again. No answer. He's probably in a meeting, Camilla said, but her voice lacked conviction. Charles picked up his own phone, spoke quietly to someone, then hung up. I've just ordered security to locate Tom, to check his phone records. His movements over the past week, his access to palace areas. You're investigating my son based on a guard's suspicions and a child's accusations? Camilla's face was flushed now, angry. I'm investigating evidence, Charles corrected. Evidence that my granddaughter was targeted through her pet. Evidence that suggests premeditation and cruelty. He looked at Charlotte. His expression was gentle. This must have been very frightening for you. Finding out someone hurt Duchess on purpose. Tears were forming again, but she blinked them back. I just want to know why. Why would anyone do that? Camilla sat down heavily. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt. Fear. But she said nothing. David's phone buzzed. A text from Jenkins. Security found something. Meet me in the guard office. Now. David showed the text to Charles. The king nodded. Go. Charlotte stays here with me. James, please inform Prince William and Princess Catherine that we've found Charlotte and that she's safe. As David left, he heard Charlotte's voice. Small but determined, grandfather. There's something else. There have been other things. My bedroom leak. The alarm in our kitchen. My first cat dying. I thought they were just bad luck, but now the door closed behind David. He moved quickly to the guard office. Jenkins was waiting with 2 other security officers and a laptop. Thompson, look at this, Jenkins said, turning the screen. Security footage. From the palace internal cameras, Tom Parker Bowles in the East Wing corridor. 3 times over the week before the renovation was completed. Carrying what looked like food. Cat food, specifically. He was feeding the cat, David said slowly. Luring it into the walls? Gets better, Jenkins said, clicking to another file. Phone records. Tom called Morrison & Sons contractors 3 times during the renovation. Each time, he specifically asked about the timeline for sealing the walls. When it would be finished? Whether they'd checked for animals? He knew, David said. He knew the cat was in there. He made sure they sealed it in. And here's the kicker, one of the other officers said. Financial records. Tom's bank account shows a deposit of £50,000 2 days after the renovation was completed. Source traced back to an offshore account linked to his mother. The room went silent. Camilla paid him, Jenkins said quietly. She paid her son to trap and kill a 9-year-old's pet cat. David felt sick. But why? What's the endgame? Stress, Jenkins said. Psychological warfare. Small incidents that accumulate. That make William and Catherine look like they can't protect their own home. Can't protect their children. It erodes confidence. Public perception. Eventually, it creates doubt about fitness to rule. And if William is deemed unfit, the line of succession doesn't change, Jenkins said. But the regency arrangements might. The power dynamics shift, and Camilla maintains her position. Possibly even increases her influence. David stared at the evidence. This wasn't just animal cruelty. This was a calculated attack on the future of the monarchy. Using a child's pet as a weapon? We need to take this to the king, David said. All of it. Now. They gathered the evidence. Digital files. Phone records. Security footage. Financial transactions. Built an ironclad case. As they prepared to return to the king's office, David's phone rang. An unknown number? He answered cautiously. Thompson. Sergeant Thompson. A woman's voice, nervous. This is Eleanor Whitmore. I used to work for Queen Camilla. I heard you're investigating what happened to Princess Charlotte's cat. I'm listening, David said. I have information, Eleanor said. About other things? Things I was told to keep quiet about. The leak in Charlotte's room I was ordered to create it. To make it look like a plumbing failure. The carbon monoxide detector I was given a device to trigger false readings. I didn't know why at the time. I thought it was just, I don't know, testing security protocols or something. But when I heard about the cat, you realized it was a pattern, David finished. A coordinated campaign. As Eleanor whispered, and I can prove it. I kept records, emails, instructions. I was scared to come forward before, but now. Where are you? David asked. Outside the palace. North Gate. I didn't know who else to call. Stay there, David said. I'm sending someone to bring you in. Under protection. And Eleanor. Thank you. This takes courage. He hung up. Looked at Jenkins. We have a whistleblower. Someone on the inside who can corroborate everything. Jenkins nodded grimly. Then we have enough. Let's end this. He returned to the king's office. Charles was still there with Charlotte. Camilla sat rigid in her chair. William and Catherine had arrived. Catherine held Charlotte close. William stood behind them, his face dark with anger. Your Majesty, Jenkins said. We have additional evidence. Phone records. Financial transactions. Security footage. And a witness ready to testify. Charles looked at each piece of evidence as it was presented. His face grew harder with each revelation. When Jenkins finished, the king sat back in his chair. Camilla, he said quietly, I'm going to ask you one question, and I expect the truth. Did you orchestrate attacks on my granddaughter through her pets? Camilla sat silent. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Did you pay your son to trap and kill a child's cat? Still silence. Charlotte spoke up, her voice clear. She did. I can see it in her face. She did, and that's when Camilla finally broke. Camilla's composure shattered like glass. You don't understand, she said, her voice breaking. The pressure, the constant scrutiny, everyone waiting for me to fail. Waiting for you to reject me, Charles? I was trying to secure our position. Tom's future. My legacy? By terrorizing a child? William's voice was ice. By killing her pets? I never meant to hurt Charlotte, Camilla insisted. It was never personal. It was strategic. Small incidents. Manageable problems that would make you and Catherine look overwhelmed, distracted, not ready for the throne. Catherine's face went white. You tried to make us look like unfit parents. I tried to protect what we've built, Camilla said, turning to Charles desperately. Everything I've endured, the public hatred, the comparisons to Diana, the endless judgment. I needed to ensure that when you're gone, I'm not cast aside. That Tom has security. That we matter. So you hurt a 9-year-old's cat, Charles said. His voice was barely above a whisper. You orchestrated months of psychological torture. You paid your son to commit animal cruelty. And you justify this as strategy? You don't know what it's like, Camilla said. Being the second choice, the one everyone hates. Knowing that the moment William takes the throne, I'd become irrelevant. An embarrassment to be hidden away. You made yourself irrelevant, Charlotte said. Her voice was small, but steady. Not because of who you married, but because of what you did. Good people don't hurt animals. They don't scare children. They don't lie. Camilla stared at the 9-year-old who had unraveled her plans. For a moment, her face showed genuine remorse. Then it hardened. You're too young to understand. This family, this institution, it eats people alive. I did what I had to do to survive. By sacrificing my daughter's sense of safety, William said. By making her afraid in her own home. She's fine, Camilla snapped. The cat lived. Charlotte is fine. Everyone is fine. You're all overreacting. The cat lived because Sergeant Thompson heard her crying, Charles said. Because one guard refused to ignore suffering. If not for him, that animal would have died in agony in our walls, and Charlotte would have blamed herself for the rest of her life. Walked to the window, stared out at the palace grounds. When he turned back, his face was carved from stone. I'm calling the police, he said. This is criminal animal cruelty, harassment, possibly assault through psychological means. This goes beyond family matters. Beyond palace discretion? Charles, no, Camilla stood. Please, think about the scandal. The press will destroy us. The monarchy will be damaged. The monarchy is already damaged, Charles said, by what you've done, by the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty. I won't compound that damage by covering it up. He picked up his phone, but before he could dial, the door burst open. Tom Parker Bowles stood there, disheveled and panicked. 2 palace guards flanked him. We found him trying to leave through the service entrance, one guard reported. With several bags packed, Tom, Camilla said, Don't say anything. Don't. I'm sorry, Tom interrupted. He wasn't looking at his mother. He was looking at Charlotte. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do it. She said it was necessary, that it was for the family, that it wouldn't really hurt anyone. You trapped my cat, Charlotte said. Her voice shook. You left her to die? Twice? I know, Tom said. Tears were streaming down his face now. I know, and I'll never forgive myself. I was desperate. In debt. She offered money. Security, I thought. He shook his head. I don't know what I thought. I just know I did something unforgivable. Tom, stop talking, Camilla ordered. Don't say another word. Why not? Tom turned to her. What else is there to protect? They know everything. The evidence is right there. And I'm tired. Tired of lying. Tired of being your weapon against people who never did anything to us. He looked at Charles. I'll confess to everything. Answer any questions. Face whatever consequences. But I need you to know this was her plan. Her idea? I'm guilty of executing it. But she's guilty of designing it. Camilla sank back into her chair. For the first time since David had known her, she looked small, defeated. I want immunity, she said quietly. Assurances that this won't become public. That Tom won't face prosecution. In exchange, I'll leave. Quietly. No scandal. No fight. No, Charlotte said. The single word rang out clearly. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood up from her mother's embrace. Walked forward. Stood in front of Camilla. You don't get to negotiate, Charlotte said. You don't get to hurt people and then walk away because it's convenient. That's not how justice works. That's not what being royal means. Charlotte Williams started. No, Papa, Charlotte said. She needs to hear this. Being royal isn't about protecting yourself. It's about protecting other people. It's about doing what's right even when it costs you something. Grandmama Elizabeth taught me that. And Camilla broke every rule. Every promise. Every trust. She looked up at Camilla. Duchess almost died because of you. I spent days thinking I'd lost her. Thinking it was my fault. You made me feel that pain on purpose. And you think you can just leave, and that makes it okay? Camilla's eyes filled with tears. Charlotte, I never meant for you to suffer. Yes, you did, Charlotte interrupted. That was the whole point. You wanted me scared. Wanted my parents worried. Wanted my family to look weak. Well, we're not weak. We're strong. And we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Charles moved to his granddaughter's side. Charlotte's right. There will be no immunity. No negotiations. This goes to the proper authorities. And the public will know what happened. All of it. The scandal will destroy the monarchy, Camilla whispered. No, William said. The scandal will hurt. It will be difficult. But hiding it would destroy us. Pretending it didn't happen would make us complicit. We protect the institution by holding people accountable. Even when it's hard. Even when it's family. David watched the scene unfold. Watched a 9-year-old girl stand up to the queen. Watched a future king choose truth over comfort. Watched a family decide that justice mattered more than reputation. This was what he'd signed up to protect. Not just buildings and bodies, but principles, values. The idea that right mattered more than rank. Sergeant Thompson, Charles said. You'll need to give a full statement to the police. Everything you witnessed. Everything you discovered? Yes, Your Majesty, David said. And Sergeant Charles continued. Thank you. For caring about a cat's crying. For refusing to ignore suffering. For investigating when something felt wrong. You saved more than an animal tonight. You saved this family's integrity. David didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. The police arrived within the hour. They took statements. Collected evidence. Arrested Tom Parker Bowles on charges of animal cruelty and criminal destruction of property. Camilla was questioned extensively. Her diplomatic status complicated things, but the evidence was overwhelming. By evening, the news had broken. Not through leaks or speculation, but through an official palace statement. Clear, honest, complete. The public response was immediate and fierce. Outrage at Camilla and Tom. Sympathy for Charlotte. Respect for Charles's decision to prosecute despite the personal cost. An overwhelming support for the guard who'd rescued a trapped cat. David tried to avoid the attention. He was just doing his job. But Jenkins found him that evening in the guard quarters. You're trending on social media? Jenkins said with a slight smile. Hero guard. Compassionate protector. The man who listened when a cat cried. I'd rather not be famous for doing basic human decency, David said. Maybe that's the point, Jenkins replied. Maybe we need reminders that basic decency matters. That listening matters. That one person caring can change everything. Later that night, David got a call. Dr. Morrison. Duchess is ready for visitors. Someone wants to see her. David drove back to the clinic. Found Charlotte there with her parents. The little girl was sitting beside the crate. Duchess was awake now, stronger. She'd eaten a small amount of food. Her eyes were brighter. "Sergeant Thompson," Charlotte said when she saw him. "Dr. Morrison says Duchess can come home tomorrow. Mummy and Papa said we need to thank you properly." "You don't need to thank me," David said. "Yes, we do," William said. He extended his hand. "What you did listening to that crying, investigating when something felt wrong, protecting my daughter's pet even when it cost you time and risked your career, that's true service." "I'm just glad she's okay," David said. Shaking William's hand, Charlotte stood up, walked over to David and without warning, hugged him. "You saved her. When no one else heard her, when no one else cared, you saved her." David felt his throat tighten. He knelt down. "Your cat is very brave, and so are you. What you did today standing up to Camilla, demanding justice, refusing to let her negotiate a way, that took real courage." "You taught me that," Charlotte said. "You showed me that even small voices matter, that even small creatures deserve to be heard." She pulled back. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Will you check on Duchess sometimes? When she comes home, make sure she's really okay?" "I trust you." "She trusts you." David smiled. "I'd be honored." As the family prepared to leave, Catherine touched David's arm. "The king wants to see you tomorrow. Something about a commendation. But between you and me, thank you for protecting my daughter, for caring when you didn't have to, for being the kind of person who hears suffering and does something about it." After they left, David sat with Dr. Morrison in the quiet clinic. "Hell of a day," she said. "Hell of a week," David corrected. "Think Camilla will actually face consequences?" "I think so," David said. Charles was serious. "And William won't let this slide. The evidence is too strong. The public pressure, too intense," Dr. Morrison said. "No one should get away with cruelty. Not even queens." David looked at Duchess sleeping peacefully in her crate. A small ginger cat who'd survived because someone heard her crying, because someone refused to ignore suffering, because small acts of compassion could have enormous consequences. Tomorrow, there would be statements and interviews and official proceedings. Tomorrow, the full weight of what had happened would crash down on everyone involved. But tonight, a cat was safe. A little girl was reunited with her pet, and justice had been served. Sometimes, David thought that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Asterisk 3 months later. David stood in the throne room at Buckingham Palace wearing his dress uniform. The King's Guard Medal for exceptional service hung newly on his chest. But that wasn't why he was here today. Today was different. The room was filled with press, cameras, journalists from around the world, but also families, children, representatives from animal welfare organizations. King Charles stood at the front. Beside him was Charlotte, holding a fully recovered Duchess. The cat wore a small royal blue collar, a gift from the king. She purred contentedly in Charlotte's arms. "Today," Charles began, his voice carrying through the room, "we gathered to acknowledge a truth this family learned the hard way. That cruelty can come from anywhere, even from within our own walls. But also that courage can come from anywhere. From a guard who heard suffering and acted, from a child who demanded justice, from a small cat who refused to give up." It gestured to David. "Sergeant Thompson did more than rescue an animal. He reminded us what service truly means. Not blind loyalty, not ignoring uncomfortable truths, but listening, investigating, acting with compassion and courage even when it's difficult." Charles paused. "As many of you know, my former wife and her son have been charged with criminal animal cruelty. The trial is ongoing, but regardless of its outcome, this institution failed in its duty to protect its most vulnerable members. We allowed pressure and politics to blind us to what was happening under our own roof." He looked at Charlotte. "My granddaughter showed more wisdom at 9 years old than many of us showed in decades. She refused to accept easy answers. She followed the truth wherever it led. And she stood up to power when power was wrong.
Alice
Stepped forward. She'd written a speech, practiced it for weeks, but now standing in front of all these people, she set her notes aside. "I want to tell you about Duchess," she said simply. "She's just a cat. But she's my cat. And someone hurt her because they wanted to hurt me? They wanted to make me scared, to make my family look bad. And it almost worked." She stroked Duchess's head. The cat nuzzled her hand. But then Sergeant Thompson heard her crying. In the middle of the night, in a place no one should have heard, and instead of ignoring it, instead of thinking it wasn't his problem, he stopped. He listened, and he saved her. Charlotte looked at David. That's what heroes do. They don't just protect people from big threats. They pay attention to small suffering. They care about things that seem unimportant, because nothing that hurts is unimportant. The room was absolutely silent. Even the hardened journalists looked moved. "So today," Charlotte continued, "we're announcing something new. The Duchess Foundation. Named after my cat. Its job is to make sure animals are protected during royal renovations, to create protocols so this never happens again, and to help other animals who get trapped or hurt and need rescue." She looked at the cameras. "And if you ever see an animal suffering or hear one crying, please don't walk away. Please be like Sergeant Thompson. Please care. Because small acts of kindness can save lives." The room erupted in applause. David felt his face flush. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd just been doing his job. But somehow that job had become something bigger. After the ceremony, there was a small reception. David found himself surrounded by people wanting to shake his hand, to thank him, to tell him about animals they'd rescued or helped. Eleanor Whitmore was there, the whistleblower who'd come forward. She'd testified against Camilla and Tom, provided evidence that sealed the case. She approached David nervously. "Sergeant Thompson," she said, "I wanted to thank you. When I saw what you did, how you didn't give up, how you investigated despite the risks, it gave me courage to come forward. To tell the truth, even though I was terrified, you did the right thing," David said. "That took real bravery." "So did listening to a cat crying," Eleanor replied. "Most people would have ignored it, walked past, decided it wasn't their problem. But you didn't, and that changed everything." Later, David found himself standing with Jenkins near a window overlooking the palace gardens. "You know, you're famous now," Jenkins said. "The Compassionate Guard. They're using your story in training programs, teaching new recruits about vigilance and compassion." "That seems excessive," David said. "Does it?" Jenkins asked. "Think about what you started. Not just rescuing Duchess, but everything that followed. The investigation, the truth coming out, the accountability, Camilla facing justice, the Duchess Foundation. All because you heard crying and decided it mattered." David thought about that. About how one moment stopping in a corridor, pressing his ear to a wall, listening, had cascaded into all of this. "I just couldn't walk away," he said quietly. "I kept thinking, what if no one else heard? What if I was the only chance that animal had?" "Exactly," Jenkins said. "That's the point. You didn't assume someone else would handle it. You didn't rationalize it away. You took responsibility. In a world where everyone's trying to avoid responsibility, that's revolutionary." Charlotte found them a few minutes later. Duchess was still in her arms. The cat looked around with bright, curious eyes. Completely healthy, completely recovered. "Sergeant Thompson," Charlotte said. "There's someone who wants to say hello." She held up Duchess. The cat looked at David, seemed to recognize him. She reached out a paw, touched his hand gently. David smiled, stroked her head. "Hey there, Duchess. You look good. Much better than last time I saw you." "She remembers you," Charlotte said. "Dr. Morrison says cats remember people who help them, who make them feel safe." "Duchess knows you saved her." "We saved her together," David corrected. "You demanded the truth. Your parents supported you. Dr. Morrison provided care. Jenkins investigated. Eleanor came forward. It took all of us, but you started it," Charlotte insisted. "You were the first one to care, to listen. Without you, none of the rest happens. She shifted Duchess to one arm and pulled something from her pocket with the other. A small velvet box. This is for you? From Duchess. And from me. David opened the box. Inside was a small pin. Gold, shaped like a cat. With tiny emerald eyes. It's not official or anything, Charlotte said. But I wanted you to have it, so you remember. So everyone knows you're someone who listens when others cry. David felt his eyes sting. Charlotte, I can't accept. Yes, you can, Charlotte interrupted. Because you earned it. You saved my best friend. You protected me even though I'm just a kid and you're an important guard. You cared when you didn't have to. She stood on her toes and pinned it to his uniform. There, now everyone will know. William and Catherine approached. Catherine smiled at the pin. It suits you, Sergeant. Thank you, Your Highness, David said. For everything. For believing in the investigation. For supporting Charlotte. For demanding justice. Thank you for protecting our daughter, William said. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You showed her that good people exist. That kindness matters. That speaking up makes a difference. He extended his hand. You'll always have a place in this family's respect. And if you ever need anything in all you call. Understood? David shook his hand. Understood, sir. As the reception wound down, David stepped outside into the palace gardens. The same gardens where, months ago, everything had started with a distant crying sound. Where a trapped animal had been calling for help in the darkness. He thought about Camilla, facing trial. About Tom, who'd confessed and was cooperating with prosecutors. About the scandal that had rocked the monarchy but ultimately made it stronger. More honest. More accountable. He thought about Charlotte, who'd learned at 9 years old that justice mattered more than comfort. That truth mattered more than reputation. That protecting the vulnerable was the highest calling. And he thought about Duchess, a small ginger cat who'd survived impossible odds because someone had listened. David's phone rang. His wife. Hey, love. How did it go? It was intense, David said. Good, but intense. I'll tell you everything when I get home. I'm proud of you, she said. I know you think you just did your job, but you did more than that. You showed people what caring looks like. What courage looks like. After the call ended, David walked through the gardens. Thought about his career, his life. The moment in that corridor that had changed everything. Some people would say it was luck, being in the right place at the right time, but David knew better. It wasn't luck. It was choice. The choice to stop when you could have walked past. The choice to listen when you could have ignored. The choice to care when you could have decided it wasn't your problem. Those choices defined everything. Made the difference between cruelty thriving and cruelty being stopped. Between suffering continuing and suffering being ended. David touched the cat pin on his uniform. Felt its weight? Its meaning. A reminder that small acts mattered. That paying attention mattered. That refusing to ignore suffering mattered. He thought about all the other people who walked past problems every day. Who heard crying literal or metaphorically and decided it wasn't their concern. Who saw wrong and looked away. Who knew truth and stayed silent. What would the world look like if everyone chose differently? If everyone stopped to listen, if everyone decided that suffering mattered, regardless of whose suffering it was, maybe that was the real lesson of Duchess's story. Not that David was a hero, but that heroism was available to everyone, required of everyone. That being human meant taking responsibility for the suffering around us, especially when it would be easier to walk away. As David headed back inside, he passed a young guard on duty. The man was new. Fresh out of training, he stood at rigid attention, eyes forward, following protocol perfectly. David paused. What's your name, soldier? Thomas, sir, the young guard said. Thomas Mitchell. You settling in okay? David asked. Yes, sir. Trying to learn all the protocols. All the procedures. David nodded. That's important. But can I tell you something else? Something just as important as any protocol? Of course, sir. Pay attention, David said. Not just to threats. Not just to security concerns. But to everything. To sounds that seem wrong. To situations that feel off. To suffering that everyone else is ignoring. Because sometimes the most important thing you can do is notice. And care. And act. Thomas looked confused. Sir, you'll understand eventually, David said. Just remember, we're not just protecting buildings and people. We're protecting values, compassion, justice, the idea that every life matters, even small ones, even ones that can't speak for themselves. Like Princess Charlotte's cat, Thomas said suddenly. Everyone's been talking about it. About how you saved her. It's not just me, David corrected. But yes, like that. Remember that story? Remember that caring about small things can lead to big changes. That paying attention matters. That your job isn't just to follow orders. It's to do what's right. He clasped Thomas's shoulder. You're going to do great here. Just don't forget to listen. As David walked away, he glanced back. Thomas stood a little differently now. Less rigid. More alert. Eyes watching. Ears listening. Good, David thought. One more person who might hear the crying. One more person who might stop to help. That was how change happened. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through individual choices, through people deciding that suffering mattered, that truth mattered, that kindness mattered. Through people hearing a cat cry in the darkness and deciding to open a wall, David headed home. To his wife, to his own small, quiet life far from throne rooms and ceremonies. Tomorrow, he'd be back on duty. Back to rounds and protocols and the daily work of protection. But something had changed. Not in the job. In him. He understood now that every moment was a choice. Every sound a potential cry for help. Every situation a chance to make things better or let them stay broken. And he would always choose to listen. To care, to act. Because somewhere in the darkness, something might be crying. And if he was the only one who heard, then he was the only chance it had. And that, David thought, as he drove through the London streets, was what service really meant. Not glory or recognition or medals. Just showing up, paying attention, and refusing to walk away. Always. Because small acts of compassion could save lives, could change families, could shake institutions and demand justice and create foundations and inspire others and ripple out in ways you'd never imagine. All from stopping to listen when a cat cried. All from caring when you didn't have to. All from being human in a world that often forgot what that meant. David smiled, touched the cat pin on his chest, and drove toward home, carrying the weight of knowing that kindness mattered, that courage mattered, that he mattered. Not because he was special, but because everyone was special. Everyone had the power to hear crying and respond, to see suffering and act, to make the choice that changed everything. That was the legacy of Duchess. Not a story about a rescued cat, but a reminder about rescued humanity. About what we could be if we just paid attention, if we just cared, if we just listened.